Hey everybody, this is Matt Buell with M Buell Studio, and on behalf of the Woodworking Network and your Young Wood Pro host, you know it, monthly topic time. So, you're a young wood pro, and I'm sure, just like I was, you keep it simple. You're starting a woodworking business, so on a daily basis, you get up, you do your morning thing, and you go to work. And when you get to work, you work. Sounds easy, right? Sounds simple, right? Yeah, because life never throws curveballs. Work pieces never get weird about how they don't go as planned. Clients never interrupt you when you're working. Family and friends never ask you to do anything in the middle of the day because you set your own schedule. Right? Yeah. This month's topic, time management. Mm-hmm. I rolled my eyes when I knew I had to write this one. I was like, ugh. And the truth is, when I roll my eyes about a topic, it's what I need to look at. So, not only am I helping you this month, I'm going to help me. So let's dive into it. I'm going to break it down to three different areas. One, time management from a more micro version of like in the shop work. Like, how do I manage my actual physical labor time and prioritizing certain tasks and stuff like that? Just simple outlooks and approaches. Two, time management regarding client relations slash marketing, whatever you want to call it. And then three, time management and good boundaries with family, friends, and loved ones, because it's a real thing, especially if you're self-employed, in my experience. Doesn't mean we don't love them, but we got to take care of our business, right? You can't run a business if you ain't running a business. Got to be there. All right, let's get to it. All right, first things first, time management in the shop. So what this is what your time management looks like as far as delegating what tasks to yourself, but in priorities or in order. Do you have a certain order in which you do things? Do you? Or do you just walk in and start on whatever you left off on? So my approach is simple. As I've mentioned before in previous videos and articles, my number one antagonist or villain on a daily basis that I'm fighting is time. And in woodworking, it's always been my main villain. So when I come into work, unless there is like a little bit of cleaning or maybe emptying a dust collector or something that I didn't get to the day before I got out of here, I immediately start on tasks that will require the most sitting or setup time. And by that, I think most woodworkers know what I'm talking about here is I come in and I start attacking all of the stuff that's going to eat up the most time waiting. And because of that, I have found that's kind of the same as a good offense is my best defense. I go right at time. So my order of operations is anything that's going to got to sit and glue for a little bit or needs, spray coats on it for finish, anything that's got to sit. That is my number one priority, first thing in the door. My next priority is anything that is almost to a place where it needs to be glued or finished and needs to sit. So maybe I need to route a few joints on some mortises, or I've got to go shoot a coat. That's second order of operations of importance, okay? Once I knock those things out and they get to a place where they are just sitting and time is working on them, I put myself to work on stuff like sanding, routing, sculpting, milling lumber, whatever it is that is more of an immediate, like, okay, I did the task and now the task is done. It's ready for the next phase kind of thing. On a good day, with no interruptions or distractions or life's curveballs, I can get all that stuff into glue or into finish or both, get to work on things that are more immediate, like I mentioned, sanding, routing, sculpting, milling. And by the time I'm done with that, the stuff that I put into glue or finish is ready for the next round of finish or is ready to come out of glue and now join the club for routing, sanding, finishing. So it's I'm always moving back and forth in between and integrating pieces into it in the process. That's also allowed me to work on more than one work piece at once. I've got one sitting for a client and I'm managing my time in a way where it's, let's say I'm getting it ready it needs to be sanded and prepped to finish. Well, I don't come in and go right onto that. I'll come in and go straight to another piece I'm starting for a different client because it needs to sit in glue. Get it in glue. While it's sitting, I go work on the other piece. And that's how I've been able to move pieces out multiple, which is more efficient and more profitable. So also within the wheelhouse of time management from the shop view is your schedule. setting one when you are actually in shop versus when you're not. Now you can roll all willy-nilly and just pop out of the shop and do stuff whenever you need to do stuff. But I have found that's kind of chaotic. And granted, you have to be flexible sometimes, but I've tried to come up with a schedule and stick to it. So how I roll is Monday mornings and Friday afternoons is more of my office hours stuff, like any administrative stuff I need to do, any marketing notes I need to make, or contacts or videos I need to come up with, sourcing information, sourcing materials, sourcing bids, writing articles. So I have kind of my office hours set. And then after the Monday morning office hours, I leave Monday afternoon open to physical sourcing if I need to. They're loose. I mean, I try and stick to it, and sometimes I have to kind of divert every now and then because it's just, life does what it does. Like things only available on a Wednesday, or a client can only talk, on a Thursday afternoon. Okay. And my backup on that usually is I try and block out a night or one afternoon or morning on a weekend every 2 weeks that I'll kind of keep on the back burner available to a client, because most of them are working during my work hours too. And so if I need to go meet and take measurements and stuff, it needs to be in off hours. Easier to do that if I'm doing it 2 weeks out and I have that available to offer, because there I'm not disappointing family and stuff like that. So I also genuinely try to work. I get in at 8, sometimes 9, and I don't leave till 6. But I leave at 6. I heard an older gentleman say that years ago. He goes, my best family life has been when I get home by 6. And he was right. From his perspective, it's, having a life outside of work is healthy. And what's it all for anyway, right? Home. So in order to actually have something to go work for, I have to show up and be a part of it too. So I try and get home by 6. Sometimes I got to go late. Deadlines happen. But time management. One more thing when it comes to scheduling. You do have to check your email on a regular basis, probably more frequently than Monday morning and Friday morning, like I schedule my office hours. But if I'm checking my email all day long and I'm on my phone all day long, I'm not doing any work. So turn the thing off, put it on silent. And I think now they have some stuff on phones that it's kind of like quiet mode or something like that, focus mode. Do that. That's pretty cool, actually. But I do check my email usually during lunch and about 15 minutes before I leave work. Is there anything I need to respond to immediately? If so, I do so. If not, next day at lunch. Best practices. Put the phone down and work. Okay, let's talk about clients. So there's been times in my career where I was so slammed with work in shop and inquiries coming in that if I would have spent all day just handling the inquiries, I wouldn't have gotten any paying work done. Now, there's ways you can deal with that, like hire some help or hire someone to do inquiries. But when it comes to high-end furniture and knowledge about woodworking and stuff, you got to teach somebody all that too. So it's hard. And here's kind of a simple rule I came up with. The client I owe the most allegiance to is the one who has already paid me and their piece is on my bench, okay? And so I'm sitting on my bench, and it's symbolic because this is what I tell myself if I'm stepping away too much during business hours of physical work that I've scheduled to take phone calls, is that this is about the equivalent of how much work is getting done. None. It's just me sitting on my bench. It doesn't mean that inquiries should not be answered. It doesn't mean that phone calls should not be made. But I have found that the balance usually when I'm having a hard time with it is, where do I go? The allegiance always comes to first priority. Clients that are already committed, signed a contract, and have given me deposit money. I owe them first. If I'm chasing prospective money all day long, I'm not really making any money. What do they say? In reality, they say, what is it? A bird in hand is better than 2 in the bush. The real catch is figuring out how to have a bird in hand and still be listening to the bush. Anyway, so that's how I usually go about it. During my office hours that I mentioned earlier in my scheduling for work scheduling, that is a good time for me to make phone calls, make any contacts, sourcing, answer questions, stuff like that. Checking emails, like I mentioned, lunch and right before I leave work. And it helps me kind of just keep it pruned. The other thing is, clients, there's all kinds of clients, and some are more demanding than others. But I have found if I am keeping some decent boundaries and I am being very forward and honest in a polite way about when I'm available, over time, most people respect that. It's called professionalism. And, they recognize that you have a business to run and that you're busy. And that's a good thing. People like hiring someone that they know is busy. That's a trust building thing. So it's not that big of a deal. It's hard because I think as a young wood pro, especially, you're hungry and you want to make some money. So, you feel like if you're ignoring a call for a few hours that you're ignoring money. You're not. You're just busy focusing on the money that's already in. And you get to the other, same day, 24-hour rule. Isn't that about right? This is something I've heard from a lot of people when I talk, at large events and stuff like that. I meet a lot of other tradesmen, people that work in the trades. And one of the themes that I always hear from everybody is there's something about this work and it kind of requires being in like a rhythm. And I know that's how I am best. I need to get in shop and kind of get into a rhythm and get some focus going and stay there. And there is nothing that destroys that more than interruptions and distractions. Matter of fact, distraction, if time is my number one villain, then distraction is his first henchman. And so I have found that if I'm limiting all of that and tuning it out and kind of controlling that in time slots, my workflow is better, my work quality is better, my peace of mind is better, and my focus is better. So it is a win-win. It's just hard to initiate those boundaries and kind of set those times with people on the upfront. But it's okay. You can do that. One last thing. Now, I have the privilege of being able to say to people, these are my hours, I'll give you a call at this time, yada, yada, because my workspace is private. This is not, I don't have a storefront. I am not in a urban area or even a city. I'm outside of a city. This is very private. So I have that luxury of kind of being able to allow when the doors are open and closed, literally and figuratively. However, some people that work in this profession, young wood pros, some of these could be you, you're going to have a workspace that is kind of got like maybe a storefront or signage, and people can always pop in. And that can be a lot of distractions too. And I know other woodworkers that have worked that way, and most of them kind of have what they call like a rule of three, to where they'll be working, and when a client comes by and wants to chat or ask questions, they usually have 3 or 4 questions, usually 3, that they kind of throw out there to kind of gauge the seriousness of the client and how much time they need to spend stopping workflow to meet, greet, answer questions, build rapport, all that stuff. And some of that's just intuition you're going to build over time. I would suggest if that's happening a lot, you might want to get somebody else to be there to kind of do the initial intakes so you can keep working, because it's a hard deal. You got to talk to people, but if you're not working, nothing's getting done. So you've got to come up with a way to politely, meet, greet, answer questions, and then maybe have something you can hand them. Take a look at this is my work. Give me some notes on what you're looking for, and I will get back to you by this time. I really appreciate you coming by, that kind of deal. So not every problem is the same for everybody, but I do think the solution here is kind of becoming thematic, having good boundaries with yourself and others, time management. Last but not least, certainly not least, time management regarding friends and family. And this is not a fun topic, but it's relevant in my professional experience. I've been doing this about a decade and a half, and if I had a nickel for every time in conversation someone said, "Oh, it must be so great to work for yourself and be your own boss and set your own hours," oh my God, I could have retired. That's how many times I've heard that. So I know that unless someone has been self-employed, which as a young wood pro starting a woodworking business, you are, unless someone has actually experienced that, they usually don't have a lot of perspective on what that's like and the requirements of your time and other things like financial commitment, physical commitment, stress levels, obligations. So it's a relevant thing because the people closest to you are people too. And if they have not experienced what it's like to captain a ship, so to speak, then it's not really their fault for not understanding. And because of that, there will potentially, I know for me, there have been many times where, because I set my own hours, I, for some reason, am is seen as more available. When in all reality, I can afford to be less available. Because when I get, I don't have these set hours. I try and, like we've talked about, I try and create that and stick to the best I can. But this isn't a situation where I go up, I go do my thing in an office, and when I'm off, whatever happened that day is not my problem. It's the boss's problem. Well, in self-employment, that's you. So people who love you especially, they're going to ask, hey, I know you're busy, but today could you help me with this too real quick? Or can you come help me move something real quick on this day of the week? I know you can be flexible, or, families, it's just part of it. And like I said, it's not a knock on them. It's just how this goes. And I doubt I'm alone there. And what I have found, the best thing I can do time management wise is consistently try is have my schedule and stick to it the best I can, because it sets a precedent and an example. When I'm at work, let's say from 9 to 6, I'm at work. Unless it's a quick lunch break thing, I'm just not available. If it's an emergency, fine, and those come up. But sometimes it's very hard to set that kind of example or boundary, but over time you stick to it and people understand. And sometimes you just have to say no, and it's not fun. I mean, girl dad here. I love my little girl, but I have learned to have to say sometimes, I can't get to that right now. Or, hey, I will be glad to help you with that when I get off of work. Or, hey, I'm going to have to get back to you on that later. I'm working right now. It's the nature of things. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way, because when I had the inability to say no, the effects of that were more stressful than just the stress of saying no. It's very simple. What's more important? Feeling bad for saying no and losing a half day because somebody wanted you to do something, or not making a mortgage payment? Most people like living in their house. So it's hard, but it is a really big part of time management I have found regarding the self-employment aspect. Is that you're going to have some scheduling. You're going to have to kind of dig in sometimes and say, I can't get that today. I have to get some work out. And that's just part of it. Over time, it usually gets better because the people that love you want you to do well. And if you are in a situation where you are the person paying the bills, they like having the bills paid. So the more you succeed and the healthier your boundaries are over time, it does get more accepted. So be ready. And I will say, for you young wood pros, very likely a lot of you don't really have this problem yet. Right? You're not there in life. And good, work all you can. But I also encourage you to still find a way to have boundaries with yourself so that you're not working all the time and you are setting yourself up to have a life outside of work, getting off and taking a day a week at least, or 2 days a week, to enjoy some hobbies, to spend time with your friends. Because if you do not, what will happen is you'll be years down the road and you'll wonder where everybody went, and you'll be wondering what you're supposed to do to relax. So use the time you have now to kind of go ahead and build that life that you're working for. Right? Well, okay. That is our topic for the month, and I appreciate your time. And I need to make sure that I'm not a giant hypocrite. Like I said, I roll my eyes at the topic too, and it's because I know that's something I need to look at. So, as I would suggest to you, I'm going to go do the same. I'm going to go double check my scheduling, go look at how I'm managing my time and if I can do it so more efficiently and how I'm handling things. Give it a shot. Heck, let me know how it goes. See you next month.